This video is made in partnership with Anchor. I've spent 60 days with both the 13-inch M2 iPad Air and the 11-inch M4 iPad Pro, and after using them both for some time, one thing is clear. iPads are not a computer replacement, but they are a really good computer alternative, provided your apps work well on iPad OS. And for most people, it's a really good computer companion. But I know it can be confusing deciding on which one to get. Do you get the iPad Air and save some money? Do you get the iPad Pro? Is it worth it? And what about 11-inch versus 13-inch? So let me share my experience with both devices so far, talk a little bit about my thought process, and then later in the video, I'll share my recommendations and hopefully that helps you in your decision making. The M2 iPad Air starts at $600, which is $400 less than the base M4 iPad Pro. But for the sake of this video, we'll use the iPad Air with 256 gigs of storage as a point of comparison, so it's a little bit more apples to apples. And that configuration is $700, which gives us a difference of $300. So it's not hard to see that the iPad Air is the best bang for your buck. You're essentially getting most of what an iPad Pro offers for a lot less, with some concessions of course, and those trade-offs can be worth it or not depending on what you're looking for. In my June vlog, I used both iPads exclusively for a week. I was switching between the two of them to see if either one of them is better at replacing my MacBook. And another reason for doing this is so I could see the spec differences play out in real life and determine if it's actually noticeable in my daily use. As expected, for basic uses like browsing, writing notes, checking emails, I really didn't notice a performance difference between the M2 and the M4 chip. Both iPads are snappy, super responsive, and truthfully, even my 2020 iPad Pro is still really good in this aspect, so no surprise there. Even for architecture and content creation, the experience was pretty similar, and we'll talk more about this later, but what I did notice is the difference between the displays. Unfortunately, the iPad Air only has a 60Hz refresh rate, while the iPad Pro has 120Hz thanks to ProMotion, which visually makes any sort of movement on your screen look smoother. It's something that can be hard to look past once you experience it, and I can see this being a deal breaker for some people who are upgrading from an older iPad Pro with ProMotion. Personally, I noticed a difference in my day-to-day use, and all the more when it comes to gaming. Playing FPS games like Warzone Mobile just feels better on the iPad Pro. The gameplay feels and looks smoother, and it could give you a competitive advantage. Not to mention, if you are playing demanding console-like games or doing some heavy GPU tasks, the hardware-accelerated ray tracing of the M4 can make a difference. Although the liquid retina display of the iPad Air is very impressive and looks really good for an LCD screen, there is no denying that the Ultra Retina XDR or Tandem OLED of the iPad Pros just looks really good. The colors are more vivid, and its deeper blacks and higher contrast ratio makes watching movies and TV shows a really pleasant experience. On top of that, the higher sustained brightness of 1000 nits compared to 500 nits for the 11-inch or 600 nits for the 13-inch iPad Air makes it more suitable to use in brighter environments. Things like glare and reflections just appear lighter and less distracting on the M4 iPad Pro. Another thing that is very noticeable is the difference in sound quality. The iPad Air only has 2 speakers while the iPad Pro has 4. And I will say that the difference in sound quality is greater or more apparent than the difference in picture quality, which says a lot. The overall sound of the M4 iPad Pro is just much fuller as a whole. The mids are clearer and distinct, they're less muddy, and I find that the bass has more oomph, but if you use headphones most of the time, this shouldn't be an issue. But if you like playing stuff in the background or like watching with other people, then this is worth considering. There's also a big difference between the mic recording quality. The iPad Air has 2 mics as opposed to the iPad Pro's 4 studio quality mics, as Apple would call it, and I can definitely tell the difference. So this is the front-facing camera of the iPad Pro, and this is the mic quality. What do you guys think? And now this is the front-facing camera of the iPad Air, and let me know what you guys think of the mic quality compared to the iPad Pro. Another thing you'll get with the Pro model is the LiDAR scanner, which is great for AR, and it has come in handy a few times, especially when we were planning our living room makeover. There's also the adaptive True Tone flash that should help with scanning documents, but admittedly, I don't use this as much. Although both devices have USB-C, the iPad Air actually doesn't support Thunderbolt 4, so there's a huge difference in speed between both of them. The iPad Pro can transfer up to 40 gigabits per second compared to the iPad Air's 10 gigabits per second, making the iPad Pro a bit more capable, especially when using it with other accessories. One significant difference that unexpectedly bothered me was the experience of using Touch ID versus Face ID. Particularly when I have the iPads attached to a keyboard case or when I have it docked. I found that the iPad Pro with Face ID offered a more seamless experience. I don't ever need to touch my iPad at all to unlock it. It's just a superior solution and a lot more convenient for everyday use. Other than those things I mentioned, the iPad Air and iPad Pro offer a really similar experience. They are great tablets with computer-like capabilities. Almost everything you can do on the iPad Pro, you can do on the iPad Air, and they both have great battery life. But of course, your actual runtime will depend greatly on your use case, and that's why I like having a power bank with me, so I never have to worry about the battery level of my devices. I've used other power banks in the past that work really well at first, but then after a few uses, they stop working. But I've never had that with Anker. I've always had a good experience. And this Anker Prime Power Bank is a prime example of a fast and reliable power bank. This is a 250 watt power bank that can charge a 16-inch MacBook Pro to 50% in 28 minutes thanks to its 140 watt output. It has a 27,650 milliamp capacity, so you can charge your iPhone a little over 5 times and your iPad a little over 2 times. Simply put, this means you have enough capacity to fast charge multiple devices comfortably through the 2 USB-C and 1 USB-A port. This power bank outputs some pretty impressive numbers even when you have 2 or 3 devices plugged in. So if I want to take my iPad, iPhone, and AirPods out for work or vacation, I have enough power in this power bank to fast charge those devices several times. And because this has a 99.54 watt-hour rating, it's airline safe. Thanks to the built-in screen, I can see real-time stats like how much battery is left and how much each of my devices are pulling to ensure that I'm maximizing the charging speed. And the same goes for charging the power bank itself. You can charge the Anker Prime via USB-C, but I prefer charging it wirelessly using the 100 watt charging base because it's so convenient, and it can also double as a charging hub for your desk setup. There's also an app that you can download to see additional information like the number of chargers available for your specific device, find my capability if you lose this power bank, optimize charging options, and many more. Anker has been producing some of the best charging solutions out there in the market, and the Anker Prime Power Bank is no exception. I highly recommend it, so make sure to check it out by using the links below. And thank you, Anker, for sponsoring this portion of the video. My experience using an iPad exclusively for a week was very eye-opening. It made me think that maybe I have underestimated how powerful iPads are in its current state, but it also confirmed some of my thoughts about what it's lacking and what can be improved. During that week, I explored using the iPad Air and iPad Pro docked, and I was surprised how natural most of the experience felt. In a way, it felt pretty similar to my MacBook Pro. I was able to plug in my iPad with a single cable to use my peripherals. I connected it to my studio display, my speakers, and for the most part, it worked as expected. Of course, there were things that I had to get used to because iPadOS is designed for a touch input and I was using a mouse, but overall, I still felt pretty productive. One really annoying thing about this experience though is the fact that I found myself needing to resize windows quite often. I am so used to using shortcuts when resizing my windows, but unfortunately, this is not possible with an iPad. At one point during WWDC, I thought they were going to bring the Windows management that they are implementing on the MacBook over to the iPad, but it doesn't seem like that's happening. One of the biggest advantages of getting an iPad over a MacBook is the ability to have cellular connection. Personally, there's something reassuring about bringing my iPad with me, knowing that anytime, anywhere, I have internet connection, especially since my business pretty much runs online, so having access to my emails, Notion, and Google Drive is just so crucial in ensuring that I could be productive on the go. Another practical thing that's missing on the iPad is having the ability to separately set the trackpad and mouse when it comes to its scrolling. I like natural scrolling when it comes to my touchpad, but not when it comes to my mouse wheel, and right now, you are forced to set them up the same way. And this tripped me up a lot when I was doing architecture work. I zoom in and out a lot, and the fact that it's inverted was super annoying. And it's so unfortunate because everything felt very familiar, especially when it comes to SketchUp. Using shortcuts worked really well, the toolbar looks familiar enough, navigating around 3D models is quite smooth. However, my experience modeling something even as simple as this credenza was quite painful. There's a slight delay in input and it stuttered a little bit every now and then, so it felt a bit sluggish and it definitely affected my efficiency. But in a pinch, sure, I'll deal with it, I'll just power through and get the job done. For AutoCAD, the experience is a bit better when it comes to drawing. The app overall feels smooth and I didn't experience any stuttering, but the interface can definitely be improved. It's missing some basic and really key features like the ability to use shortcuts, using the function keys to quickly turn off snap, object snap, polar tracking, and so on. And on the other hand, using trace to sketch and produce red lines is probably the only app that actually enhances my workflow. And because of this, iPads are computer companion at best when it comes to architecture work. And it's such a huge contrast from content creation. Apps like Photoshop, Lightroom, and DaVinci Resolve have all been adapted really well in my opinion. I can comfortably edit photos on the iPad Pro. It might even offer a better experience compared to my Mac because of the Apple Pencil. And when it comes to video editing, DaVinci Resolve is a great example of how a desktop could be implemented. I edited and color graded a portion of one of my YouTube videos on an iPad and the experience was quite pleasant. Even the export times were pretty respectable, especially for the M4 iPad Pro, which rendered the 10-minute video 35% faster than the M2 chip at 21 minutes instead of 32 minutes. And just for context, my M3 Max MacBook Pro rendered it at almost 12.5 minutes. So a good amount of difference when it comes to export times, but that didn't really translate to the editing experience. However, when it comes to the screen size of the 11-inch versus 13-inch, there was definitely a big difference in the experience of using both. This alone can be a video on its own, but let me try to simplify it a little bit. The 11-inch is a great size if you're thinking of using it more as a computer companion. Its form factor is ideal for a tablet first use because the 11-inch is a lot more manageable to hold with one hand. It feels more balanced, especially when you're interacting with it using your finger or an Apple Pencil. I find it perfect for working on the couch, in bed, and on the go. It's not as in your face as the 13-inch size, therefore I feel nimble when using it. I can pick it up and start working right away, and if I need to stop, I can easily pick back where I left off. But this might be relative because my main device is a 14-inch MacBook Pro. Maybe if I had a 16-inch MacBook Pro, the 13-inch would feel smaller to me as well. The 11-inch size is great for focused work. I find that having a single app or two simple apps open is the sweet spot because sometimes even a single app that has so much going on like DaVinci Resolve can feel too cramped on an 11-inch display, and that can also be true for multitasking. But don't confuse that with productivity because during the week of using only an iPad, I felt more focused while doing the tasks I needed to do because I was forced to be intentional with the apps I have open on the 11-inch. And when I needed more screen real estate, I just plugged it into my studio display and essentially had the best of both worlds. A very portable device that can offer a Mac-like experience when docked. And this is where the 13-inch display shines. The extra screen real estate is really nice to have at all times. It's a great size if you're thinking of using this as a main device. You won't really need to rely much on an external monitor for heavy use. It's great for multitasking, and if you decide to use it as a secondary device, it's a great extra monitor on your desk setup, and it's really great for note-taking and sketching. You just have more space to place your palms and write things on. It's about the size of a letter-size paper, which most people feel comfortable with, but since it's heavier, I usually find the 13-inch more comfortable to use on a table. It's a bit unwieldy, especially when holding it with one hand for an extended period of time, and that's simply the trade-off of going for the bigger size. So here's my recommendation, assuming that you're set on getting an iPad. If you want an 11-inch and don't care for anything I mentioned in the first part of the video, I would go for the 11-inch M2 iPad Air. It's still super powerful, it should last for a while, and you can get the Apple Pencil Pro with the money you save. However, if you can shell out the extra $300, I would go for the M4 iPad Pro. The upgrades you'll get for the extra $300 is worth it in my opinion. The OLED screen is beautiful, you get Face ID, ProMotion, better speakers and mic, and if you want to start video editing or using your iPad dock, having the Thunderbolt 4 connection can really expand your use. But if you want a 13-inch size iPad, then I would go for the 12.9-inch M2 iPad Pro with mini LED, because right now, a brand new 256 gig Wi-Fi and cellular version is $1,000 on Best Buy, which is only $100 more than the 256 gig 13-inch iPad Air Wi-Fi version. And by going this route, you're getting the same M2 chip with arguably better specs. And although you are losing the ability to use the new Apple Pencil Pro, you can use your old accessories, or if you don't have one yet, you can most likely find one for less. My personal choice is the one I currently have already. It's the 11-inch M4 iPad Pro with cellular. I just think it's a great all-around device, and after using this iPad for almost 60 days, it made me realize that this was the device I've been wanting all along. Before this video, I definitely was pushing for the idea that iPads needed to do more, and in a way I still do. But the real problem is Apple is charging primary computer money for these devices, and we are expecting primary computer capabilities. And without that, these devices are getting harder and harder to justify. Essentially, we're paying a lot of money for a device that we need to adapt to, which is counterproductive. And unfortunately for us, there was little to no exciting announcement for the iPads during WWDC. But regardless, if you have a 2020 iPad Pro or older, I feel comfortable saying that these generation of iPads are worth the upgrade. In fact, my 11-inch iPad Pro made me fall in love with using my iPad again. If you have specific questions, let me know. I answer all of my comments, and if you made it this far in the video, type worth it in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you loved it, subscribe to the channel and help me reach 100K subscribers this year. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.